This is a KOIN 6 News breaking news alert.
And that breaking news, decades in the making. A car believed to belong to the Martin family pulled up from the Columbia River just moments ago. The Martin family missing since 1958, one of Oregon's greatest mysteries.
Just incredible to watch this unfold because you've been following this with us. This big effort for a day and a half now live on the air. So let's bring in Jeff Gianola, who is at the command center once again right now. In fact, Jeff has special access connected to his years of intense coverage on this case. Jeff, tell us more.
Well, I'm witnessing something pretty incredible. They are just now loading the Martin car onto a flatbed truck. What's left of the presumed to be the Martin car onto a flatbed truck that has a blue tarp stretched out on the back bed to preserve any kind of evidence. And then just moments ago, I want to show you this video. Moments ago, the car was pulled out from the bottom of Cascade Locks, and this was a very slow process. They didn't want anything to fall apart on the car, and they wanted to preserve all evidence if they could, and then it submerged. And this was our first look at the car. And you can see most of the body of the car was missing. The main structure of the car, the undercarriage, some of the engine compartment, the axles with all four tires, they're intact. And here's where we need to be respectful. We don't know if there are fragments of human bones in this car. And so I'm trying to be very respectful. I'm about 50 yards away from where they're now loading the car. There's what's left of the car, the remains of the car, strapping it on to the flatbed truck. And this is sort of a very solemn moment. I think all the investigators who've been involved with this are kind of quietly taking pictures, looking. They're being very respectful of what's going on. Once again, you don't know what kind of evidence is in this car. So they're treating this very respectfully, very professionally, and they're just in the process of strapping the car down onto the flatbed truck. This has been quite an ordeal. The barge arrived here yesterday, the crane with the crane on it, around 12:30. There was an attempt yesterday to pull the car up, but it was just stuck in the debris and the mud. Early this morning, divers with the salvage company out of Portland, associated with the crane, they were working feverishly to clear the mud and debris and the rocks, things that were sucking the car down like a vacuum onto the floor of the locks. And they felt they had cleared enough of it away. Why this afternoon, they started the effort to pull the car up, the remains of the car. You know, this is such an important clue, such an important piece of evidence in the disappearance of the Martin family. Let's take a look, and remember that this is a tragedy. Let's take a look at a snapshot of the Martin family if we can. There was Ken Martin, the father, Barbara Martin, the mother. They're sitting on their living room couch here. The three daughters, Barbie, named after Mom Barbara, Virginia, and Sue. And then the older son, Don Martin. Don was in his 20s in the Navy, living in New York when the family disappeared. Don later went on to marry, moved to Hawaii, had a family. And I've corresponded with Don's children over the years of my covering this. And the sad tragedy is here, they knew nothing about their grandparents or their aunts. Their father didn't talk about it, and maybe it was too painful for them. And when I was doing my investigations into this story, you know, dating back years ago, it was the first they heard about what happened to their grandparents and their aunts. And my heart really went out to them about that. You know, you think about the coverage we've had on this story over the years, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention the great Anne Sullivan, who was a reporter for the Oregonian, for more than 52 years. And she covered this from day one and constantly kept readers updated throughout Oregon on what was going on. And she did some pioneering work in the mystery of the Martin family. And I do want to salute Anne Sullivan. She's no longer with us, but I wonder what Anne would think this day. They're starting to cover up the remains of the car, the wreckage of the car, with a blue tarp. Once again, I can't stress enough that we just don't know what kind of evidence is in the car. You may look at this and say, there's not much there, but I can see from my vantage point, there's a back seat that's, tattered and torn, but what's in that seat? They're going to go over there. Are there maybe some fragments of human bone? Is there possibly other kind of evidence? There were two theories into the disappearance of the Martin family. The very first theory, days after they disappeared, the Hood River Sheriff saw tracks in the gravel. This was not a paved lot then. It was a gravel lot. It was easy to back your car up into the locks accidentally. And he felt that the Ken Martin may have accidentally backed into the locks. The Multnomah County Detective Walter Graven, he investigated the case, and when they didn't find the car here at Cascade Locks initially, he came up with some theories. There was some pretty strong circumstantial evidence that this could lead, that Martins were victims of foul play. He felt very strongly about that. This case haunted him for the rest of his career. And he always said his last entry in his detective book will be solved when they find the vehicle with the bodies inside. Well, I can tell you from my vantage point, I'm not seeing any full skeletal remains or anything like that, but we just don't know what kind of fragments could be in what's left of this car. And we need to be very, very respectful of that. It's kind of a very somber scene down here, very quiet. Everything's quiet. The crane has stopped working, and you just think you'd never, see this day in a mystery that's more than 66 years old, the mystery of the Martin family. They're pretty convinced this is the car. And let me tell you, local diver Archer Mayo is the one who discovered this car, and it was buried under tons of debris. And he spent a long time uncovering. This is his underwater video that he took, and you can see the amount of debris on this car. He was able, during one of his dives, to get a partial plate. And back in the 50s, Multnomah County, you had your own metal registration tags, and he had a picture of that he took. And that's how they were able to identify this, or pretty certainly that this was the Martin car. Now, Archer also said he felt this car was pretty intact. But remember, this car is upside down in the water. That's the way it came up. And that's what Archer saw when he was down there. So the undercarriage of the car is pretty intact when you look at it. The axles are there. The wheels are there. The hubcaps are on. It's the rest of the car. Most of the rest of the car is missing. The side, the doors, the thing, those are missing. And we have no idea. Are they still underwater? Is there going to be an effort to retrieve those? I don't know. Will they go down and try to dredge and maybe see if they can find any evidence? I don't know. If the divers are here, that's a question I'll have for the sheriff. I know the sheriff, Matt, is going to, Hood River Sheriff is going to have a briefing, I think, once this scene wraps up here. But this is a pretty historic afternoon here, because this Martin family mystery was probably one of the both baffling mysteries in Oregon history. And at the time the Martins disappeared in 1958, this was the largest manhunt in Oregon history ever attempted. And what happened was the days turned into weeks, the weeks turned into months. There were theories and conjecture, but never any hard evidence. The bodies of two of the Martin girls, Virginia and Sue, wash up downriver 5 months after the Martins disappear. And they thought, well, maybe, that'll lead to some answers. It really never did. It just added to the mystery. And pretty soon the months turned into years that turned into decades. And I think almost everyone thought we'll never know. The Columbia River will keep that mystery forever. Well, it looks like the Columbia River gave up part of that mystery. And will any evidence that they're able to discern from this wreckage of the car, will that lead to answers? And that's what we don't know, and we may not know that for quite a while. But a big chapter has come to the end. Some new chapters open in the investigation into the disappearance of the Martins as we take a live look as they continue to strap down the wreckage on the back of this flatbed truck.
Jeff, you've done such an incredible job, as I mentioned, a day and a half of really giving us this intense play-by-play of this latest new lead in this case, but also as we reflect on the intense investigative work that you've done on the mystery behind what happened to the Martin family, who they were, the many theories that we all ponder. And I want to say a big thanks to you and everybody who's helped cover this for the last day and a half. And we know that, as you mentioned, this closes one chapter, but we know that then a lot more work continues after this. Could there be more evidence? What will be found with the debris of that car? So then there's so much more ahead from here as well. Jeff, we want to thank you so much once again, and we'll be checking back with you.
Yeah, I want to thank the investigators on this and Archer Mayo, who found the wreckage. They're the ones that really, I think, deserve the credit today. All right, I will stay with this, and I'll be talking to you during our 5 o'clock newscast.
All right, Jeff Gianola live for us tonight in Cascade Locks. And of course, we do have much more on the Martin family and the decades-long look into their disappearance. You can find that at coin.com, Jeff's original reporting on the 50th anniversary of when they vanished, and his podcast series on the larger investigation.